This is episode 2. Our focus is getting back in the gym and kind of talking about mindset when it comes to working out, and we'll kind of get into like process as well. We got myself, Jeremy, Josiah, and John. We're the founders of Faith is Fitness. This is our video podcast, and we just talk about all things fitness and faith related. And so probably this episode will have the most value for you if you're either thinking about getting back in the gym, you're getting back in the gym recently, or maybe could use some motivation at this point, wherever your process is at with working out. And if you're a fitness person, there's a chance that you have conversation with people about fitness, and sometimes you hear them say, man, they'll have like, I'm not sure if I want to go back in the gym, or here's my frustrations. This is a great episode to send to them because we're going to kind of address a lot of different things like that. So, and if you are interested in being coming in and being a guest, let us know, because we definitely want to talk to different people about various different things. So if you have something that's important to you in the about fitness and you want to talk, especially faith as fitness related, we want to bring you on. So just let us know. We're open to it. Okay, so first question, can you guys remember the first time you went to the gym? Just went to a gym to like work out, like a typical weightlifting, like, there's like barbells there, there's dumbbells there. How did that start? What did that look like?
Yeah, I do. Me personally, I think like 2 or 3 YMCA's in Rockford, and so that's probably my earliest is knowing, like, as a young kid that I wasn't able to, step inside the weight room until a certain age. So I remember that being a limiting factor, kind of constricting me. So I think it was like maybe 12 or something like that at the YMCA in Rockford, where you could get in, but you had to like go through a course first if you were that young, or you had to be accompanied by an adult. And so I just kind of remember that being my first experience truly in the gym, was going in there with like my older brother, and just kind of like, I don't exactly remember what we did, on the first day, but yeah, I just kind of remember just not being able to do it at first, and then finally like the doors opening and
Yeah.
stepping inside for the first time. It was a great feeling.
Yeah, the Y has like those kind of like, you can't be in there until you're like 12, 13 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Were you intimidated of like all the big dudes or very strong fit women in there at the time?
No, I think I don't mean to laugh. I'm not laughing at strong fit women. We got a lot in our gym. I think that it was more of excitement, kind of like probably what we will be talking about within this podcast, within this episode, is just like our own potential. And so, kind of like learning as I grew up, just knowing that there was like a potential inside of me. And so it's kind of finally like there was a little glimpse of like testing that, and, walking through those doors of like, okay, this is like the first step of let's see what I can do. Let's see what I can become.
Mm.
I like it.
Was it a little bubble thing just showed up? What was that?
John did it. John liked it.
Oh, okay.
There's a bubble?
Nice.
Interactive.
I just saw like the bubble part, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? It's got like an idea. Yeah, that's cool. What about you, John?
Yeah, I do. It was at an army, what are they called? I guess not a camp, but wherever they station, army station, I guess. My dad, base.
Like
there
a base.
Go. That's the word. My dad would go and sometimes take me and my brothers into the gym as he worked out, and I remember the track, just seeing all the weight stuff, and I was like in first or second grade, but I truly remember getting into the gym for myself my 7th grade year, when you start doing all the football and athletic stuff in middle school. And I didn't start working out hard until 6th grade, but that's where I got my first experience with weights and learning how to squat and bench with football and those other sports. So It was really cool. It was really cool,
Nice.
especially with
Yeah.
other friends and learning with one another.
Yeah.
And it was honestly just a whole new world, man. It was cool.
Yeah, I think it was similar for me. Um, not the army based thing, so that's dope. So actually, I don't even I'm trying to remember this, John. So wait, was your
Yeah,
dad in the
27
army?
years. Army Ranger.
Oh
Stud.
wow.
Stud.
Oh man, that's awesome. Look at that. Tell him thank you for your service. Thank you to all our veterans and soldiers. Um, yeah. So for me, I think it was similar. I think we're basketball team, and like it was like this, like we were gonna kind of introducing like seventh grade ish to the gym. I think we went to the high school gym or something like that, and yeah, it was super intimidating for me. Like watching like high schoolers like work out, and like of course like it's crazy like how much change can happen in a few years, right? And so you're maybe like 12 or 13 and you're watching these like 16-year-olds and it just seems like where they're at is like a million miles away. You know what I mean? You're like, what the heck? Like, am I like behind or something? You just don't realize that like, like as puberty, testosterone and working out happens in 3 years, you can gain a crazy amount of muscle really fast and you can get so much stronger fast. But in your mind, you're like, what? Because from like maybe like 8 to 11 isn't that crazy, but somehow from like 13 to 16 is like insane for men, in
Yeah.
particular. So and then yeah, just them having us do different things. Like I think we tried to squat like the barbell and it was like super hard and like stuff like that. You're like, what do we even have like weight on in our minds, not knowing that actually barbell is 45 pounds, so for a 12-year-old that can be challenging in some ways. So yeah, anyways, I think I was intimidated. I think I could tell early on to like anatomically like um a lot of weightlifting stuff isn't geared towards my anatomy versus other people's anatomy, like being someone with like really long femurs and long limbs and actually kind of dainty wrists and ankles. It's like not the best. So it was intimidating for me, but I think early on too there was this like excitement. And for sure, like I don't know if it was the why, but it was maybe like hotels and stuff, just being able to get in. Josiah, you bringing that up? Yeah, just like having that, like, yeah, I'm old enough to walk in here if I want. That is cool, for sure. I wish I would have gone with somebody like you went with your brother Josiah, John. You went with your dad and your brothers. That's a cool way to start. I went kind of more with team and stuff, where you're like, I don't know, you didn't feel as supported. Um, just it felt more competitive and trying to prove to everybody, you know. It was like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So it's nerve wracking.
Well, that's one thing I was thinking about too was just like the fact, props to everyone out there who kind of like travels to the gym for the first time by themselves. Um, I couldn't imagine that. So definitely like, that's big encouragement to hear as far as what that you did it, Jeremy, and then I'm sure that there are multiple people out there who have had to pave their own path essentially.
Yeah.
I just think that speaks volumes.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things going to the gym is just sizing up, right? Feeling sized up, sizing other people up, seeing where you're at. So if your experience is like, I don't know, for whatever reason, if you walk in, you're like, I feel like I'm looking pretty good compared to everybody else or whatever, then it might be a positive experience. I know for me, when I started getting serious about weightlifting and I was in football, I felt like, how most gyms, they got all these mirrors, And I feel
Yeah.
like I would look at myself in the mirror and I'd look at like another dude and I'd be like, I don't look as good as this dude. like I was like, one day, like in my mind, it just popped in my head, probably for a reason. I was thinking, okay, like I will feel a certain like way once I look a certain way. You know what I mean? Like I'll feel like I belong in this gym. Like I felt like once I put the shorts on and the shirt, it's like I don't fit the part right now. I don't look like a guy who works out should look, you know? And that's coming from someone who had dealt with being overweight and stuff like that. And so being overweight is where I kind of come from in my like late adolescence, teenage years, of working out, being introduced to the gym. I came into the gym like overweight, chubby. Um, and so that's like how that was my experience. So I'm
Yeah.
curious. So I think for a lot of people, that's a factor where like they feel either in terms of the way they look or what they can do. might feel inadequate. That
I
could be an
think what's so
advantage.
cool and also just funny about that is, like, for one, it's a real thing, and it's not. There's a lot of thoughts that go in through your mind when you first enter a gym and you don't know what you're doing, and you see people doing things and they know what they're doing and they're complex, and just kind of looking and seeing. And it reminded me of the dude Anatoly, if you guys know of that guy from like TikTok or YouTube. He's a professional, I think, weightlifter, big dude. He's not massive in
Yeah.
size, but he's very strong. And he'll go up to these dudes in the gym and he's like, "Can I clean right here?" And he's like cleaning, and he's like, "Can I show you how to lift this?" And they're looking at this dude. They're jacked. They're big. And he's like, they're looking at him like, "You can't do this. You can't lift what I'm lifting." Much smaller dude, and he goes and starts lifting it, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, how can you lift this?" Like, and then you just see the respect level just shoot up the roof because he's capable of doing it. But it's just funny how like there are people in the gym that have egos, um, but not to worry about those things because everyone's on their own path, and people like Anatoly, like who can do the stuff and make a joke about it, can make light that, like, hey, like it's not that big of a deal, like have some fun and put some respect on people, you know.
Yeah, that's cool.
I feel like I don't like that
guy. You gonna say that right here? Hey, Anatoly, if you're watching, we apologize for doing that. No, I'm just kidding.
I can't figure out why. Like, man, like what? I can't figure it out, and I don't think I'll figure it out yet. But whenever I see those videos, like my dad will send it to me or something. But whenever I see those videos, I don't know why I don't like.
It might come off show offy or something.
It's hilarious though. You got to see it because he's a small dude. Like when you look at him,
he is. He doesn't look.
And these big dudes strong. Who got the mass, and they're just so perplexed at how he can lift this weight. And they're humble. They're like, we'll listen.
Very strong.
That's good. You have to like check your ego at the door, especially when you're starting in the gym. So if you can allow yourself to like accept the process, to like actually make form more important than weight in the beginning. That's one of the biggest things. If you can just make form, doing things right, developing the mind to muscle connection before you're even super concerned with like doing a weight that someone else next to you is doing, you know? If you can do that, if you have that discipline and that humility, most likely you will get the most out of your working out in the long run.
Well, I think that's good. I'm not too sure if we already touched on that before, but just the fact that, like, you take any kind of beginner and put them in the gym, it's going to take at least 6 months. This is good, just kind of like, as far as those studies go, it's going to take at least 6 months to see any kind of like hypertrophy in the sense of like your muscles getting like larger. But because what's happening, like you mentioned before, Jeremy, is just your nervous system. Everything's kind of like connecting. Like if you think about it simple, like a bicep like flex. Well, in order for my bicep to like flex, these muscles have to almost not relax, but they can't be as flexed as this one. So it's kind of like all these mechanisms, all these counter movements have to like happen, and your body just gets more and more efficient at that until it can like it gets that down pat, and then you keep stepping up in the sense of like your body's like, okay, now I understand when you're trying to do like a simple like bicep curl that when my bicep is contracting and it's getting smaller, well on the opposite end my tricep's getting longer, and then your deltoid, all these muscles have to be like intact, like synergized. They're kind of like all intact and all doing their thing just for this simple movement. So yeah, it takes at least 6 months for you to actually kind of see some. But you're like beginners, you guys have that advantage of, the sky's the limit in the sense of it's not going to be like, oh, did I miss my creatine that day? Or did I just not hit my aminos? And that's why I'm not like gaining anything compared to like a professional. Like you think about like a professional cyclist or somebody who's been doing it for 20, 30 years. Those people have to make these like very small, kind of like changes in their details and their diets to improve. And so where their window of improvement might be like this small, like if you're just starting off in the gym, your window of improvement and like your growth is just vast compared to those guys. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's like
Yeah,
an
that's good.
encouraging thing.
Yeah. And that kind of just made me think about goals. I think like one of the biggest things, if you can try to have some kind of specific goals, if I go to the gym and I just like generally, I haven't thought it out, but if I'm really honest with myself, I've kind of have a vision of myself that I'm trying to get to, but I haven't really thought about that. And I just start doing general working out. I just like, I don't know, I'm going to do back today, I'm going to do legs tomorrow. And then even maybe after 6 months, I'm frustrated because I'm not seeing results. Like when I look in the mirror, whatever, I'm not happy, but I haven't really thought out, well, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? What is it that I'm even doing? And why am I even here, really? You know what I mean? Like, I know generally working out is good. You know, I know some things I don't want. I don't want to be weak. I don't want to be fat, or I don't want whatever. You know, I don't want to be out of shape. I don't want to be able to not play with my kids. I don't want to, whatever it is. I don't like, I don't want to look silly in front of my girlfriend or wife, whatever it is, or other way around. If this is a lady listening, other way around, like, your husband, your boyfriend, right? Whatever it is, but have like, I just want to like encourage people. That's an example of like, that's probably going to be frustrating versus here's an example of like something really good. It's like, hey, I want to gain 5 pounds of muscle and I want to lose 5 pounds in fat, right? Or I'm training for a marathon and I want to run it in this amount of time. Or, those are some examples, right? Of like, you're much less likely to get frustrated. And then you go in and train for those specific things that you're trying to do. That's most likely going to set you up for success to have a less frustrating process, right? That's my fault.
You want to stay healthy. And the best way to stay healthy is taking it one day at a time and being present with where you're at, not going too hard on your first day. Don't go too hard in the beginning, because like Josiah and Jeremy were saying, you got to build that muscle, that mind to muscle relationship there, and there are certain movements you got to learn and forms and techniques that'll keep you being able to do it for a long period of time, rather than injuring yourself because we'll just say you're benching way below your pecs, or you're benching way above your chest, and it's just not the correct form, which could lead to shoulder injuries, all sorts of different stuff. So the goal is to be able to work out for as long as you can.
Right.
The intensity starts off slow.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's good. I just thought of, okay, so like, what are some ways to do that? So one, have like something specific you're kind of working towards is helpful, but like getting started, I love what you said, John, like not going too hard and stuff. So like a good recommendation, right, would be to have a program, maybe, whether it's like you literally go to a gym that has classes and they have a programming, like for instance, CrossFit, most CrossFit gyms, like they have classes, they have a programming that either they do or they pay for. And so then it's kind of like set for you. It's like people had, like, basically you have years of foundation that have probably gone into the programming. They have a pretty good understanding of what it's going towards. You can ask questions, okay, like, what is this program? What is the goal of this programming? A lot of CrossFit programs have cycles. So it's like, hey, we're in a strength cycle. So if you don't really have strength goals, then maybe that's not the best place for you. If you have strength goals, could be perfect for you. For instance, if you're training for a marathon and you go to a strength cycle in a CrossFit gym, that's maybe not the right thing, right? But, or another way is you can go with somebody who's experienced, right? You go with someone who's experienced. You can also pay for programming online. There's one that I do recommend. It's called Renaissance Periodization, RP Strength. What's cool about that one is that it's one of those types of ones that are, you put in like what you want, and it can even help you with nutrition and diet. Like it has like a holistic approach to help you achieve your goals, and you kind of get a coach who can kind of like dissect and show you what's happening, what's not. And there's a lot out there like that. Um, but yeah, if you're starting out and if you're brand new and you want to just kind of get into lifting in general, I totally recommend taking advantage of like a personal trainer situation. Like you could learn some foundational gold if you get the right personal trainer to help you. If you're really fortunate, maybe you have a friend that's a personal trainer that'll work out with you, and maybe you can save some money that way. And or just friends that are not personal trainers, but they've got like lots of experience and they can show you a lot of foundational things. They can like maybe take their phone out and show you when you're doing certain lifts to show you certain things to change. Having just that outside perspective on you is great, and especially for people who are like I've lifted. I lifted for football. I did track, and then you stop working out, and you're getting back in, and you think you know everything. I would definitely recommend having someone at least come with you, take video of you, show you what your squats look like, what your deadlifts look like, stuff like that, because you might be surprised how much tweaking and change and relearning you might need to do. Um, those are some of like just like a few things of like starting out. Do you guys have anything to add or um, challenges on that? Don't agree with any of that?
100% agree with you. Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between having some form of knowledge, basic knowledge of knowing how to run, whereas somebody who's been doing it for such a long time and can tell you even the different types and forms that people do run because of their anatomy and what works best for them and their foot structure, the type of shoe that they use, the breathing, the stride. Yeah, there's just so much to what you're saying that is true for sure, and that I've seen personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that covers at least one thing, right? Like kind of what to do when I work out. I feel like that's one of the bigger questions, like kind of like that kind of covers the sphere of like, well, what machine should I use or what kind of workout should I do or like, what should I do on each day? Like I think instead of us trying to like straight up like give recommendations for every type of like goal, just generally understanding like, hey, having some form of outside source of like help in the beginning is what you're going to want to do, right? Whether it's friends, whether it's professional trainers or something along the line or programming, whatever it is, classes. One of the great things about classes too, I didn't mention, is that you get the motivation from others as well. You get accountability. You get like structure. You get a lot of things in classes. CrossFit, one of the reasons why it's so expensive, because it almost combines like classes and personal trainer and programming and puts it all into one. And so that's why CrossFit can be really great, because you're getting community and accountability and motivation and fun along with it. But you're also getting hard for sure. And that's something we're going to talk about too, is like, embracing doing hard things. But I wanted to say that's one thing we cover with questions. What are some other questions people might have? And John, when you talked about shoes, that made me think about like clothing. Like what should like, so that might be some questions for people is like, well, what should I be like getting? You know what I mean? Like what equipment, what apparel, what shoes do I need to start working out? Do you guys have any thoughts or anything you want to put in for that for the person that might be asking that right now? Maybe you guys even gotten those questions before.
A guy in my gym works out in Yeezys, and I probably wouldn't recommend that. Like he cracks me up, but yeah,
Tell us
as far
why.
as
Why
like,
not? If someone doesn't know, what's wrong with these?
yeah, well, again, it's a CrossFit gym, so it's a little bit like more intense, but just there's kind of like no ankle stability. So a lot of movements we do, you need that good support. That's why a lot of CrossFit gyms out there, or CrossFit shoes, they'll have like really sturdy soles, and like even kind of like the framework of the shoe is a lot sturdier than other shoes. But yeah, so
It's good. It's good.
I like Sauconys. Otherwise, just any kind of like athletic shoe out there nowadays, I think is pretty adequate.
Yeah.
For people. And then I feel like any kind of dry fit material as well is good for, shorts and shirts.
And that's like, so for gym, right? If you're going into the gym, you're saying like sturdier shoes versus what, like shoes with a lot of cushion, right?
Yeah, typically, especially if you're doing, like you said, you're learning the squat, you're learning the deadlift, you're learning these movements, and even like benching, you need to get used to like having that firm kind of like foundation underneath you. That just like kind of like helps eliminate any other like factors because you talk about like an unstable surface or if you're on these cushiony type shoes, that's just especially if you're getting you're a beginner in the gym, that's just one more element that you can kind of eliminate so that your body's truly focusing on the movement that it's trying to do,
Yeah.
you know.
So it's like picture a pillow under your feet trying to squat versus like a floor, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want the floor. That's what you're saying, right? And so like we're going to get more into it because that's a whole thing, right? Shoes is a whole thing. And as far as working out goes, what you want is very different than running, right? Typically. There are some cross trainers and all that for sure and all that. And that's
Yeah.
why it's a whole
Right.
conversation. So we're like,
Right.
just so you guys know, we're going to have another episode on like really like specifically shoes. And eventually we'll have episodes on specific like
Yeah.
training modalities and like
That's it.
that. So just so you know, so that's why you want to subscribe. We're not going to try to cover everything today. But generally speaking, if you're more focused on in the gym, think sturdier, right? Versus something cushiony, which is a good thing because someone might think like, oh, I'll just get athletic shoes, but actually like they're athletic shoes, you could end up with the wrong shoes in the gym, right? If you get certain sneakers. John,
Injuries that could happen from using those wrong shoes. Like if you're using long distance shoes that have a lot of stability or cushion for squats, at the bottom of your knees, you can get some serious injury right there because you're putting most of your weight on the forefront of your feet, whereas if you're squatting, you want it mid to back of your heels. Like more of a central squat. And a lot of people might think I've got running shoes, I've got athletic shoes, so I'm good to go to squat and do that. But like you guys are saying, yeah, you definitely need that flat surface to work with. I love ultras for that. Most ultras are very flat. That would work for squats and stuff. But you guys know a lot more about specific shoes with CrossFit that I think would be even better. So yeah, you guys are right on with that.
Yeah. So what I'd recommend for people now who can't wait and they need to know what kind of shoes, I would just like go look it up. Yeah, like look. I mean, it's simple like YouTube.
Just go look
like,
it up.
Just YouTube like CrossFit shoes. CrossFit I can speak to. Like John talked to ultras, they can use in different ways. Definitely good for running shoes, especially if you have a wider toe, looking for a wider toe box. Versus like say Asics or something like that. There's always also too the Hokas. I don't know if anybody here recommends or doesn't, but they're definitely a running shoe you can get that are typically very cushiony. But for CrossFit, I would definitely recommend like something like that are considered CrossFit trainers. Like Nike's got their own version of them. I think they're called Metcons. There's Reebok. They have the Nanos, and they have various actually other things than just Nanos now. Excuse me. And then of course you got Nobles as well. And there's actually a whole lot others. There's Born Primitive. There's I can't remember. There's a whole bunch of brands too that have gotten really popular where they're much more flatter, like almost like nothing. And then of course, if you're really trying to lift and you want to look into lifters, and again, all those brands have like forms of lifters. And the big thing with lifters is typically just like it sounds, like there's a heel lift to it, and it's incredibly firm too. Usually, like you're not going to want to run in those at all. You do not want to run in lifters. But that's just like a quick thing. We'll have more combo about it, but there is lots of good YouTubers. There's some people who fully dedicated themselves to each modality. Like they'll talk only about running shoes and only about CrossFit shoes, and they'll review every shoe. And I definitely recommend them. I feel like one I've looked to is pretty good. I think he calls himself something like that fit guy or that fit friend or something like that. Something along those lines. You'll probably find it if you type in CrossFit shoes because there's like 4 or 5 YouTubers that like basically do it and they all come up. So, but yeah, so that's it for like shoes and apparel. But going back to like working out, like something decently firm, honestly, even I don't know if this is still untrue, but I think it's true, especially if you're going to do like deadlift and squat in the beginning. I don't think barefoot's a bad idea to get like a good understanding of like foot placement and balance and understanding. And you can almost tell like if you don't go heavy necessarily in the beginning, but like do like a barefoot squat, do like a few reps, and then put on your shoes. And if you notice like you're like way more unstable and stuff, you probably have the wrong shoes. You know what I mean? Like those shoes that could like give it away to just like feel it out. I don't know. It just looks like you guys. Josiah has something to say.
No, I'm not. No. I'm just like thinking.
Yeah.
No, that's honestly a great suggestion. I mean, you're going primal, dude. You're learning how your actual body works, and I think that's phenomenal to do.
Right? Yeah, I think it works. I've had a lot of coaches like recommend it for people at times, even if it's just as an experiment.
I definitely think that it all starts with starting slow. Like, don't be in a rush to get in the best shape of your life the first week. No, you're not going to get in the best shape of your life the first week, the second week, the first month, 2-3 months. It's going to take some time, and there are muscles and ligaments that need to be strengthened in order to handle the intensity that you're wanting to do in the future. You're not going to be ready if you haven't worked out or even developed those muscles ever if it's your first time in the gym. And again, there's no rush to it. You wanna stay healthy, and I think the best ways to do it. I truly believe walking an 800 or jogging an 800, that's half a mile around a track. Before your workout, just loosening up your muscles and stuff, because when you walk into the gym, your muscles are like Laffy Taffy. And if you know anything about Laffy Taffy, it has the ability to stretch, but you can only take so much before it pops. And same thing with your muscles. If you go straight into squatting or benching without doing or running without doing any sort of warm up, you're more than likely going to pull something, tear something, or would you say pop something or something out of alignment. And so I personally believe before any workout, getting in an 800-meter walk or jog is great. Maybe even like 10 push-ups.
Nice.
10 push-ups and just doing a couple stretches before you go into it. That would be my advice.
Another thing too, I would say, like if you know you're gonna do something specific, warm up for that specific thing, right? Like,
dude, I just lost to this girl named Sarah at our gym. She's a stud, and the workout included like running and wall walks, which just means like you lay flat on the ground and you have to walk your hands and your legs up the wall. So you're kind of like at the end of the segment, you're like your chest is pretty much against the wall, and like your face could almost be against the wall too. And so and then you go back down, and so it included like, I don't know, 5 or 7 or 6 of those where you had to like go up and come back down, go up, come back down, and then you would have to go back out on the run. And so it was just kind of like this constant like going back and forth, and it involved one more exercise that I can't remember. But this girl, I remember I had just talked to her, and it was at a time where I think I missed, I knew my mental strength wasn't as much. This is a lift, and this was a workout that I should have beat her at, but she's a beast. And I had talked to her, and I was like, "You've been working out every day?" She was like, "Yeah, I've been working out like 7-8 days straight." That doesn't mean high intensity all those days, but it means that she was just putting in that work, and she had that mental, and it came down. She beat me by 1 rep, so it came down to the fact that like she had that mental strength, she had that mental endurance, and I knew she did. And it was kind of like in the back of my mind, I knew she was like mentally stronger, even though I might have been, like better suited for that workout. She was mentally stronger than me at that point, and she beat me by a rep. So
kudos.
yeah,
that's
dude.
a good example. But the only thing is, I'm curious about that. Do you think you were really better suited for that though? Because you're a big guy. You're like, a lot of people may not know, you're like 6'2", right?
Yeah.
6'2". You don't mind me asking, like, you're around like what, 220?
228, 227.
Oh yeah, so you're like basically the same weight as me. I'm 6'4". Wall walks is not for us
No.
at all. Like, it's like way easier to be lighter. And running, even in truth, is not for us. There's a reason why marathon run. I don't know. Has there ever been like a top marathon runner that's like 6'4", 220? Like, has that ever happened?
No, but so I'm glad you're kind of like thinking about it.
It's not a marathon. It's 400 meters, but still, you know what I'm
saying. So you understand though, like there are different like exercises and movements that are more beneficial. But she is also probably 5. Let me think. Okay, she's probably like 5, tall girl. 8, 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah, kind of tall
like
for a girl.
Maybe 5'10". But so it's not like she's short. And number one, number two, I know I'm a better runner than her. She's a better lifter than me, but I'm a better runner than her. So she is kind of like pretty well built. Yeah. So it came down to the fact that like we're both not as good with wall walk. So that wasn't the thing. I knew I was going to get her with the running. But just for that day, she was like locked in, and I knew it. And I found, and she beat me at the end.
Now we got the full picture. So that really, that is a good example, because we had wall walks this week as well for me, and that was like the workout where I kind of like, there's like probably like 4 or 5 people like did better than me, and I'm typically not. I'm typically like kind of above that, and it always happens like it was wall walks, and it wasn't even a lot of walks. It was like 4 wall walks at a time, which is like manageable. And I'm good for my size, but there's just like no way around it. You know what I mean? Like wall walks and stuff. Like, I'm really good at burpees for my size, but I remember the open last year, or the open this year, that was like burpees and snatches, I think, like dumbbell. It's like after a while, it just like, if there's like only 20 at a time or something like that, like the one I did yesterday where I like did, I think, the best of everybody that day, that's all right. That's manageable. I'm fast at them, but dude, you can't fight like the fact that like I weigh 230 pounds. I'm 6'4". There's a little thing called gravity. I'm fighting it more than the work I have to put in is significantly more than some of the people. The people who, like, 2 of the people that beat me at the gym at the open significantly, like the gal is probably like 100 pounds less than me. Like, no joke. Like 100. It's like, are you joking me? Like, it's not even like, we're not, in my opinion, we're not in a contest. Like, when you weigh 100 pounds less than me, and that would be like, for instance, me like lifting more than her and being stoked. It's like, she weighs 100 pounds less than me. That's not a win. Like, we're just different. And she's a woman too. And so it's like, we're not in competition with each other. So anyways, that's just a little side note for CrossFit, is that I've had to learn, who are you actually in competition with? You know what I mean? Because that's like, we get it generally. Like, if a 10-year-old walks in, you're not going to be like slam dunk on that 10-year-old and think you like did something big today, right? But in CrossFit, I feel like it's easy to be like, or even normal gym, by the way, to go in there and to like compare yourself to somebody's like, is that even a legit comparison?
Yeah, I feel like I got a lot to say about mentality, and we might crisscross that with supplements, because I think John's time is up. So we'll have to add that to next week's episode. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed, and Jeremy and John, I'm sure you guys got some things to end it with. But yeah, I just seriously wanted to say thank you, and especially if you made it this far in this podcast episode.
Yeah. No, definitely. This is exciting. I think we all know that we just see so many cool things happening today. There are a lot of people that are getting into the gym, and I know that there's a lot of information being thrown to people, a lot of great information to find out on the internet. And we just hope to encourage you in the faith and just what we've learned. Most of us are in our 30s or entering our 30s, and so we've got a lot of experience with sports and different types of fitness, and we all have grown just in the faith together. And so we just want to encourage you with that community. And welcome.
Yeah, I think next time we'll talk about the mentality stuff and kind of call it a part 2. And then we're going to get into, like you said, supplements 2's episode after that. So we got a lot more stuff. This is definitely like part 1. There's even a chance that I'll put the part 2 of this and part 1 together or keep it separate. I don't know. We'll see. So, so I won't have like a crazy closeout. But yeah, like they said, appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate you guys doing this with me, Josiah and John. This is fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excited for the future. Yeah, this episode we didn't bring in a whole lot about like faith and stuff like that. I think that's where like the mentality is gonna really lead us to that. So if you're really curious and interested in like how we're like tie faith into all that, just stay tuned for that. We're excited for it. But yeah, that's really like how this podcast is gonna be, like talking, conversational. We're not gonna force things in or try to force to keep it out either, especially when it comes to faith. You know what I mean? That's a big part of who we are. Each of us are Christians. We love Jesus. We know God personally. He is everything to us and completely intricate, like completely a part of our life in every way. So of course, it's going to come, like he is going to be center of like, this podcast because he's the center of everything we do. But like we're not going to hold it back. We're also not going to just force it in, just like, oh, let me just find a reason to bring it up here in this moment when it doesn't really make sense too. So appreciate you guys. Good podcast.
We'll be talking about
Thanks,
gym fits too.
See ya.